Hi everyone, welcome to the series AI Under the Hood. I'm Harshita Gangappa. I have 10 years of product experience in IT industry, building and scaling multiple products across different problem spaces. I am starting the series called AI Under the Hood, where I break down AI products in plain English for founders, for product managers, operators, designers, and builders. The goal is to look behind the hype and understand what users see, what likely happens behind the scene, and why the product matters, and what trade off teams should think about. Right? So, in this episode, I'm starting with product called Lovable. So yeah, when most people hear about Lovable product or describe about Lovable product, they usually say it has an AI app builder or a prototyping tool, right? So that is true, but I think it is too small to put that Lovable product into that prototyping toolbox. So the more interesting product story is this: Lovable compresses the path from product intent to working and reviewable software. It not just produces the mock-up, it not just produces the code in a repo, it produces a live artifact that a founder can show to the customers, or product managers can test their hypothesis, and an operator can use and build on internal tools, and an engineering team can further harden the code. So in this teardown, I'm going under the hood of the Lovable has a product system, and let's look at what it compresses of, right? So now moving to what Lovable is. So the Lovable's obvious promise is very simple, that is describe an app in the natural language and get something working. But the product move is bigger than that. So Lovable pulls together product intent, planning, UI generation, backend setup, preview, iteration, deployment, and code handoff in just one workflow. Yes, you heard it. So the end to end is happens in just one workflow. That is why I would not frame it as only a coding tool or only a prototyping tool. It I would frame it as a workflow compressor, right? Before, a user had to move through gathering the requirements, building a static mockups, building a front end, back end, then giving it for QA to do the testing, and then deploy and review. So if you see, there are multiple hands off which happens from one state to another state. But with Lovable, more of that happens inside one single loop the user can inspect. That is where the Lovable comes from product, becomes a product for prompt to working software. So when you open a Lovable app, you will see a chat sidebar where you will provide an input, where you will explain your idea either in a natural language through a prompt, or you provide a screenshots, documents, URL, or a project context. So these acts as a context or an input for the Lovable system to start working on. And as an output, the Lovable produces you the artifact, that is the live preview of the idea, which you stated in a natural language, and an editable app, and the app which has the backend paths, which has an authentication, integrations, and the code which you can further take into your personal GitHub and start digging deeper into the product. This is the outer layer of how Lovable looks. But now that's not the only thing, right? So as we go more deeper into understanding how we used to work when Lovable was not there, and now how the Lovable compresses the workflow, it is quite simple. Let me explain you that. So before Lovable was not there, we had so many handoff chains. That being said, a product manager used to collect the requirements, write the PRD, and then they used to give the PRD to the designers to do the design mockups, which ideally be a static mockups, and then it goes into the product backlog, sprint backlog for an engineering team to pick the work, and then engineering team start building that idea, and then they provide it to the QA for testing, and finally they deploy it, and then a PM or a founder get to see how their idea is actually coming into life. So this entire process used to take months for complex products, even years of work, to getting an idea to the live production and see that how it works, right? So this entire flow is compressed by Lovable now. So here this entire chain reduces into one single loop. That being said, let me explain you how the product behind the Lovable looks like. So think this has a high level system workflow. So when you open the Lovable, you provide the user intent, that can be any prompt or screenshots. Then once the model understands the intent, it will further route into the different LLMs. So here you will have two parts, that is plan mode and build mode. Plan mode is usually for understanding how further the Lovable is going to generate and build the app. If you have any clarifications or any questions or any directions which you need to change, you can provide those inputs in the plan mode, and further once you approve that, the engine goes into the build mode, that is code generation. So in this there will be multiple LLMs which is orchestrating, where there are sub agents working to collect different needs or the context which is required to build, and then they come and merge into the main router, that is LLM, where main agent, and then agent starts building the end-to-end product code generation. And then that is where you do the reasoning first in a plan mode, and then in the context mode it collects all the project memory, and then in the build mode it takes an action, the agent takes an action of generating the logic via databases, configure, authentication, those workflows. And then if the infrastructure layer gets built, that is where the product will be hosted and what backend databases will be connected. So those infrastructure layers are taken care. Then it will also go through the review and safety layer. So there will be a security scan which happens where before even providing an artifact, the end artifact for the user. So in the safety layer and inspect layer, the user can preview the output, comment, and also do the visual edits, then do the security scan, and then you can actually publish or deploy your artifact, get the live URL, or even deploy into your custom domain. And further you can get the code into your GitHub, sync into your GitHub, and then external CI/CD you can take on from there. So this is the entire backend system of how a Lovable works behind. So as we understood what happens under the hood, the different orchestration layers, that a better mental model to understand is that once a user provides an intent, the context is built, or the user provides the context, and then the LLM plans, and once the user approves the plans, it goes into the build mode, and after the build mode it provides preview for user to review and give any further feedbacks or do any iterations, and post that you will get a live URL or custom domain URL where it hands you off the product which is built and also the code base further, so you can go deeper in building the product from 70% to the 100%. So there is a code that Lovable can do 70% of the work, but the 30% of the work still remains. So let's get to that point of what it is. That is basically the trust architecture. So what is trust architecture is like in Lovable, it is separating the thinking from doing. What does that mean? So as I told you, there are two modes in Lovable. That is, when you give a prompt, you can actually develop your idea in a plan mode, where you can plan how your app gonna look like, what all features you want to put into your app, etc. So you're gonna do the entire planning in the plan mode without even generating a single line of code. And then once you approve the plan, only then the LLM takes over and the code generation happens. So after the code generation happens, there comes a review surface where you see how the preview is looking of your idea, what all comments if you need to add or you need to edit, and the scans, the security scans, or any PII scans, that is personal identification, if it is anything is leaking. So those PII scans, so those kind of security checks can happen, and then it will provide you the GitHub handover, right? So this is the trust architecture layer behind the Lovable. So moving further, so why is this exploding so much? Like if you see the Lovable economy, that it is almost like 500, it has reached 500 million ARR with just 147 employees, which means almost 2.7 million out revenue per employee. So it has got like a massive wildfire, right? So but why is that? Because it is providing the business value by giving a faster learning. That means, like, just look at the different people, like the segments which are attracted with this, like the founders who wants to demo earlier, like the founders even before building their engineering team, if they have an idea in mind, even a non-technical founders can go and build something, like even from the zero to at least 70% of the working app, they can build their idea and pitch and validate early that whether their idea could fly. So that is the faster lane which is getting done by the Lovable. So now the PMs and designers, they don't need to wait for the engineering team to get free. Instead, they can take their product hypothesis or design hypothesis and check faster, iterate faster before even spending the engineering effort. So that is where Lovable helps for PMs and designers, and for operators who can turn the internal process into tools, like build a dashboard of all the incidents happening. Like in a big enterprise, we always have an incident management tool where people used to raise incidents for any operational activities they come across. So the internal operators can build a quick dashboard to show their weekly progress. So now coming to the developers and agencies. So now once developers in the era of AI, developers need not start coding from the scratch. They can take this code from 70% and get it into 100%. That being said, AI can do most of the coding, but a human in the loop developers were to check other different parts of the code, and then the production deployment will be faster with the Lovable. So these are the segments which Lovable is really helping, and thus the businesses are moving fast for their customers as well for the Lovable. So now there are certain risks and trade-offs to keep with great with the great power comes great responsibility. In the similar way, the more faster the Lovable can produce, that is not a moat anymore. The the speed is just a feature. The control is actually the moat. What do I mean by control? As the first version can move fast, that is from 0 to 70% you can develop your app, but production still needs the human judgment, because in the production it should be a governed production path, that being, as I said, security, privacy, testing, maintainability of the production product, and the ownership. These are few things which needs to be governed properly once the app is in the production and scaling. So that these are the few risks and trade-offs we need to keep in mind. That is where the saying goes, Lovable can take your idea from 0 to 70%, but the rest of the 30% still needs a human in the loop, which is totally valued, right? So now to sum it up, whenever we look at any AI products can be integrated in your workflows, or even there's a native AI product built. For example, Lovable is a native AI product, right? So when any product managers are looking into an AI product, think from these lenses, like what workflow did it compress, what does the user review before trusting the output, where does it separate thinking from doing, what business metrics move, and what governance layer is needed before adoption. So these are the few things to keep in mind while you think about building any AI products. So if you remember one thing from this teardown, remember this: Lovable is not just generation has a feature, it is generation has a managed workflow. The user is not only writing a spec, waiting for a team, or staring at a blank code base. The user is steering a system that can plan, build, preview, revise, publish, and hand off work. And that gives us a useful lens for any AI product, right? So that is my take on Lovable product teardown. So if this helped you understand a product behind its hype and what's happening behind the Lovable product, I would like you to subscribe to AI Under the Hood for more plain English teardowns of AI products. So I'll see you in my next episode with a new product teardown. Thank you.